Good morning. I'd like to welcome you all to our second day of Reverend Dr. Jimmy Washington, to Sonoma State University. This is actually Dr. Washington's either second or third visit. He's trying to remember how long ago it's been. But his most recent visit was either in the late 90s or the early 2000s when he was here last. So he'll probably give you a little bit of information and talk to you a little bit about people who have mentored him and have been relevant in his life as he's made this journey as a person who is helping us to get to the next round, to understand what we need to do as trustees of our own personal communities and how we can make that difference in our students' lives. And so it's really a pleasure to have a friend and colleague here today. I do need to say, as a matter of housekeeping, that we are videoing this, and so if you choose not to be in the video, you need to let us know. We're back out. Not of this session, just back out the frame. Dr. Washington will integrate the audience as he delivers his message. So we don't get to be passive participants, as you would not be a passive participant in the life of equity, diversity, and inclusivity. Inclusivity means that exactly. You will be included. So understand, if you don't want to be in the frame, you probably need to go back that way. Let me give you a little bit of information. Yesterday, Dr. Washington spent time with the student affairs staff. That's where he came out of. We have been colleagues for a number of years. One of the things that we do annually for at least the last 6 or 7 years is that Dr. Washington and I both are on the Academy for the African American Male Institute for NASPA, which is the largest student affairs organization in the world. And we both happen to be partners, as we are faculty, as well as co-directors in this program. But what you'll get to see, if you have not seen or have not experienced Dr. Washington, what you will see today, and I think what the folks walked away with yesterday, and one of my exec team said in a meeting the other day, Dr. Washington will touch your soul. I had a couple of my staff members this morning that said to me, Doc, can I just have Dr. Washington just follow me around in life? I won't mention your name, Rachel. So the first thing I'd like to do is really go through, because my staff pretty much knows of Dr. Washington, but I'd like to read a little about my colleague and what he has done. He's currently the president and founder of the Washington Consulting Group. He was named by economists as one of the top 10 global diversity consultants in the world. He is the president and co-founder of the Social Justice Training Institute and president of ACPA, which is our second largest international organization, which is American College Educators International. Dr. Washington has served as an educator and administrator and consultant in higher education for over 34 years. He doesn't look it, but like don't crack. Anyway, Jamie, I get reminded of that. Jamie is invested in working with organizations to build capacity for greater inclusion and effectiveness. He works with campus leaders, staff, faculty, and students to create a culture that values respect and includes all of its members, while helping organizations and campuses address the historical and the residual impacts of exclusion. Leadership change, management, and social justice issues are at the core of his work. Dr. Washington earned a BS degree from Slippery Rock State College, a double master's of science degrees from Indiana University Bloomington, and a PhD in college student development from the University of Maryland, College Park, and a master's of divinity from Howard University School of Divinity. He's a member of the Omicron Delta Kappa Golden Key, Alpha Phi Omega, Phi Delta Kappa, and a life member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity. He also serves as a pastor of United Fellowship Church of Baltimore, and is a grandfather of 7 and a great uncle to 7. You are prolific. His hobbies include are cooking, Laundry, man, I did not know that about you out of all these years. Because I got some bags for you. Comedy shows, binge watching TV series. Okay, so his most current binge watching is, come on, tell the truth.
The Walking Dead.
The Walking Dead. And I told him, don't tell me, I don't even know. Because they were trying to give up secrets yesterday. and one of my favorite, Power. And the other thing, too, that Jamie is fascinating. You need to know Jamie also is a very accomplished musician and has a beautiful voice. And maybe today we'll get him just to do a little bit in his presentations. Because I have seen Jamie when he's done presentations and he has sung to his audience and he blows us away. So I have to tell you, he is absolutely masterful. And I don't pay you no more for that, man. That's extra. So with that in mind, I am so proud and honored to have a colleague that I have known for over decades to come to our institution to share his knowledge and expertise and take us to the next round. My friend, colleague, and my heart, Dr. Jamie Washington.
Good morning. So it is indeed a pleasure to be here. I am so honored, so humbled by that introduction. Greg and I have been connected for many, many years, and it's good to have friends, and to have friends that you can count on and that you can call on, and folks who really kind of trust in the work of your calling and the work that you've been doing. And so everywhere Greg goes, I go. And I'm great. Okay, right? So that's what he was saying. Oh, so she said, what am I coming to Sonoma State? So it is just wonderful to be here, and it's so good to see so many of you. I was saying, I cannot remember if this is the second or third visit, but I know that one of my visits, one of the folks who brought me here is a dear colleague, mentor, and friend, and that's in the person of Chuck Rhodes. And so he is my father in the field. And so some of you may know him, and I understand he's going to be around today at some point. And so I don't know whether we're going to actually get to hug each other in person, but he is that person who set an example for me as I was a young professional starting out. So Sonoma has always meant a lot to me because Chuck was here, right? And so I always knew of Sonoma because Chuck was here, and then I got to visit it at one time. And so today, folks, what I get to do in the world, and I was sharing with some folks yesterday, some wonderful students yesterday, and some of the other staff, and so I want to appreciate the folks who are the folks behind the scenes that make it possible for me to show up. And so I want to appreciate Sue, and I want to appreciate Rachel and their labor for being such amazing and wonderful hosts, and to my new mentee and friend Tremaine for the good conversations and time we spent together yesterday. So thank you so much for that. What I get to do in the world today is I get to spend time in the place that's home for me. And higher education is home for me. While I've done a lot of work, both in corporate and government and nonprofit organizations, higher education is the space where I found my voice. So this year marks 40 years. 40 years ago, this fall, I landed at Slippery Rock State College. Yes, I was a young lander. But I landed at Slippery Rock State College as a first-year student. And I shared with Andre yesterday that I didn't come in through the TRIO programs, but the TRIO programs were home for me. So I was a musician, I auditioned, I came in through the music program, but where most of the folks who looked like me was in TRIO. And so I got very much connected to that community, and from the first semester was very much a part of the TRIO experience. The TRIO experience was the experience that made my journey through Slippery Rock one that was successful. So for all of my TRIO workers in the room, I want to say thank you for your work and your labor for access to the experience of higher education. So I landed at Slippery Rock State College, and I landed there as a young child from inner city North Philadelphia, not knowing where I was going and what I was doing. And I was not discouraged from going to college, but I wasn't encouraged to go to college. That wasn't the experience that I had. But when I got there, I discovered this thing called higher ed and student affairs and opportunities. And so here I am today, 40 years later. I left the campus proper in 2001, and I left that to answer a call to ministry. I thought, in fact, I would head off to divinity school, leave divinity school, and then go back to work. That was the plan. The universe had a different plan. And so the next round for me was to serve higher education in this way. And this way is to help institutions prepare for the next round. And so as I start my session today, I want to invite you into a conversation about building capacity for greater inclusion. It takes a whole campus to do the work for the next round, right? So previously, in the former rounds, in the 80s and the 90s and all those that came before us, all of that work mattered, and much of the work of inclusion was siloed to minoritized spaces. You take care of that Women's Center, you take care of that accessibility office, you take care of that ethnic studies, you take care of that multicultural affairs. We're glad you're here, but did you do that? The next round is going to require that we all build our capacity to engage a greater and more inclusive campus environment. And that's what I'm here about. So I don't assume that because it wasn't in your title that you weren't doing the work, right? So know that some of us have been at this for a long time. My work today is about the upgrade and how we prepare for the next round. So now we've got about an hour, 75 minutes or so to be engaged in. As Greg named, that it is my intention to at least have a little bit of engagement as I try to share some critical things for the next round, okay? I shared with the group yesterday, how many of you remember technology from the 80s? How about technology from the 90s? The groups are getting younger and younger. So, so what I realize is some folks don't remember the technology from the 80s or the 90s. But they may have heard of it, or they may have seen it somewhere, and dial up, and you got mail, and mobile phones, bag phones, and all that kind of stuff. And so what I have experienced as I move about the country is that lots of campuses are trying to do diversity and inclusion work with 1980s technology. And in order for us to be effective, we have to upgrade. And that's what the intention is in our time today. So together, as I had an opportunity to sit with President Judy yesterday and some of the other senior leaders, together we are talking about moving Sonoma to the next level of greatness and what it means to upgrade our work. With that named, I want to start by honoring the land that we're on. That's an upgrade for me. Because I wasn't always conscious of the space that we occupy. And so we start with the land acknowledgement of Native American and indigenous folks, whose land we are on, whose land was taken, who did the work so that we could even be in the space today. And so we honor those named and unnamed folks of indigenous descent. We honor the legacies of those who helped to build this place, some who came voluntarily to these shores and some who didn't. We recognize that many who helped build it did not have access to it. So we honor that history and those experiences. We honor all of the shoulders that we stand on. I shared with the group yesterday. Yesterday was the 40th anniversary of the assassination of Harvey Milk. And so for all of the social justice warriors who's been about the work of creating greater inclusion, we take a moment to just breathe in. We stand on your shoulders. Those who made it possible for us to have a room that even looked like this, because that was not always the case. With that, where I hope to go today, in our short amount of time, is to deepen the level of authentic conversation and engagement about and across difference. And so I want to have an opportunity for you to just have some conversations where you can go deeper in your level of real talk. I said to the group, how many of you know we can be honest without being fully authentic? Tell the truth, but not say everything. Right? I like that blouse. I wouldn't wear that skirt. Now, while I didn't lie, I didn't say everything. Right? How many of you would agree that we sometimes have these conversations up here? The I like that blouse conversation, not the I wouldn't wear with that skirt. The upgrade is going to require that you develop capacity to have the I wouldn't wear with that skirt conversation. In your units, in your groups, as a campus, in order for us to move forward. That's the work for us. To discuss the importance of creating a learning environment, we are talking about what it means to be in a space or in a community where it is okay not to know. So one of the challenges of this round is there is an expectation that you know something. There's an expectation that you're woke, if you would, right? How many folks have heard the term woke, right? And we can get into this notion of woke Olympics, right? And who's more woke than the other person? And that what we can do in that space is do harm and silence folks who might not show up or appear woke enough. I like to create an environment where it's okay to be waking up, right? You don't have to be woke in the room, but you need to be waking up, okay? And that's the work. To consider some effective tools for building an inclusive community. So what are the tools that you need? So again, we come to these spaces, we have these great opportunities to do learning, and we might have some deeper levels of a conversation, but are we clear about the tools that we walk out with so that we can put those tools into practice and begin the process and continue the journey for building a more inclusive community? And finally, then to offer the most important tool, which is you, to begin to think about how does being me matter in the context of building a more inclusive Sonoma State University. That's where we're going in our time together. I believe that all of that starts with building community. And so I'm going to ask my friends who are passing out their worksheets for me, please, to get those passed out. Once everyone gets a worksheet, we're going to be in this kind of morning social gathering for a few minutes so we can get into what I believe is one of the most important skills, and that is the skill of engagement in this conversation. I'm so glad we got students in here. Where are my students at? Students in the room? Some students. We're faculty. Any faculty in the room? Some staff. Students, faculty, and staff, all right, from all over. Yeah, come on in. And if there's seats next to you, let folks know that there's seats next to you as folks are coming in, as we're getting together. Excellent, excellent, excellent. All right. Make sure you get a handout. If you don't have a handout, you should put your hand up, say, I need a handout. Make sure folks get you a handout. Everyone needs a handout. All right? So for the next few minutes, here's what you're going to do. You're going to rise if you're able from where you are. Move about the room. If anyone is not able to rise, please pay attention to that. And their hand might be up saying, I'm free, I need somebody to talk to, right? So pay attention. So you're going to, does anyone in the room know everybody? Okay? It has been my experience that is seldom the case. The skills needed for the next round is we need to be in community with the people who decided to come to this. This was not a required session. You need to know who wanted to come. And so we must be in community together as we move Sonoma to the next round with the folks who decide to come. That's the first part of the work, right? Now, I know that some of you are in here looking around saying, oh yeah, I knew he was coming. I knew she was going to come. Same people, always same people. These ain't the people who need to be here. So let that go. I know that's in some of you, right? You know, why isn't this person there? Why? My experience has been that when I go into a room like this, people always say, well, he just preaching to the choir. You know, this isn't the folks who need to be here. Now, Greg already named that I have a lot of experience in music, and I've had 40 years of experience as a music minister. And one of the things I know about choirs is choirs need rehearsal. So all of you who identify as choir members in this conversation, it's time for practice. Part of the challenge is sometimes the choir only comes when we're doing their song. And so, and the choir can be the main reason nobody's coming to the building. So, today, I want you to pay attention to how, as the people who would have decided to come to this, are you bringing others along? So as we move to the next round, we have to pay attention to our roles in bringing people along. What you're going to do in a few moments is you're going to get up from your seat. If you're able, you're going to go to a person, and you're going to say, hi. Hi, what's your name? Elisa. Elisa and I are going to have an opportunity to check. We're all going to check in around the first box. Each person shares what's up, whatever has your energy and or attention. That could be about life. That can be about work. That can be about family. Anything that's true for you. I'm going to talk about why that box matters and why I have everyone start there. So for students, it might be it's getting to the end of the semester, and I got one more exam to get through this class, right? Faculty, I got these papers are great. I got this project. I got to get ready for Thanksgiving. I got to get ready for the holidays, whichever holidays you do, if you do any at this time of year. It might be about family. I was sharing with Sue as I was coming in. My church does a community dinner, and so we are gathering people to bring food for this community dinner that we're getting ready to do. And so there was this couple that said, we will bring 2 pans of stuffing. It was like, you're not the people we wanted to bring the stuff. We actually wanted you to bring cups. We were having this thing this morning, so we were this was my morning, right? It's like, so it might be about life things that are going on, that you got up, that has your energy. So we're trying to figure out how to tell them, no, please don't bring this stuff. So it might be about, but it might be about work. It might be about this conversation. It might be about being in this room again and wondering about what's this going to be. That might be it. So go there. The second part, though, is how are you feeling about being in a room with this group of people to have a conversation that's the I wouldn't wear with that skirt conversation. Imagine what it would be like if you said in this room the things that you often don't say. Or the things that you say in the meeting after the meeting. So what feelings come up for you as you consider having that level of conversation in the room? Right? We're not going to ask you to get under it. I'm just going to ask you to share it. Does that make sense? Because we don't have a lot of time. But I'm going to talk about why that box is critical as we move to the next level. So after we have had our opportunity, about 2 to 3 minutes together, then I'll move to my next friend. What's your name? Vanessa. And then Vanessa and I go anywhere up here we want to go. So Vanessa might go to what challenges or concerns that Vanessa experiences with our current and local and national political climate that, makes this conversation challenging, right? I might go to an insight that I've had and how that's impacted my practice over the last 10 years, right? Or whatever, 5 years. One of the insights I've had is about land acknowledgement, right? I wasn't doing land acknowledgements 5 years ago, right? And so as I've gotten more conscious about colonization and the experience of Native and Indigenous folk, I show up differently in a room as I name that, right? So how it's impacted your practice. If you don't have anything that you've learned in the last 5 years that's impacting your practice around diversity and inclusion, you ain't doing nothing. Right? So, I want you to allow yourself to be in the place of that not being wrong, but it being true. I don't need to, I'm not here to make you wrong or to judge you. I'm here for us to get to the truth so we can decide where we need to go from there. Does that land? Is that landing for you? Okay, so in a few minutes, I'm going to invite you to get up, to move around. The goal is not to get all of this finished. The goal is to have 2 to 3 deeper levels of authentic conversation in the next 5 to 7 minutes. That's where you're going, right? It's moving us into the practice that's needed for the next round. Is that all right? Really clear? And if you find, if you get up and you go and you look around and it looks like everybody's talking to somebody and nobody picked you, pick somebody. Pick a group, right? This is not about being extroverted or cheerleaders. It is about being able to have a conversation. one-on-one, right? I do recognize the realities of anxiety, that sometimes these rooms and this kind of engagement can be challenging, so I'm respectful of that. And if you need a different kind of space, if you need to pull somebody aside, if you can't hear in different ways because of the volume in this room and you need to pull somebody, please feel free to do all of that. And it's going to be so important for us to be engaged with one another. Make sense? All right. Up, if you're able, and move. Go. Amazing. And here's what I need you to do. I need you to take the next 1 minute, the next 60 seconds. I want you to say hi to folks that you don't know. So you're going to say hi to 4 or 5 people that you don't know, haven't met at all, you know, as we come toward the end of the semester. Hold on. And then you're going to partner up with someone that you didn't know at all or didn't know as well when you came in the room, and you're going to sit next to that person. Now that might mean you're needing to move your seats, and we're going to move around a bit in the room, but you are going to get a partner, one other person. So repeat after me. I need a partner. Someone I didn't know at all or didn't know as well when I came in the room. And I'm going to sit with them. After I say good morning to 4 or 5 people. You got 60 seconds. Go. All right. Thank you so much. All right. So, give your partner a high five. High five your partner. If you're in one of those spaces where you don't want to touch other people's hands, that's quite all right. I know that cold season is real. So I just want, in particularly, what I want you to do right now is connect to the energy in this space. And part of giving high fives, connecting in that way, is about energy, right? How many folks, you know, when you see people and they give high five, right? That's generally about good energy. Is that right? That's a celebration. That's a connection thing, all right? And so, how many of us know that sometimes these conversations can be energy draining? Sometimes these issues can drain your energy. You can look around and you continue to see things that show up in ways that don't feel congruent with our values and who we are. And so how do we keep up our energy in that space? And so my intention in the high five is energy. My intention in the high five is also community and connection. And so I wanted you to connect. Start with connecting across departments, across functional areas, across the campus, across identities, and begin to have these conversations. Does that make sense? Now, how many of you, when you came in the room, were sitting with folks you knew? Raise your hand if you were sitting with folks you knew. Yep. That's what we do, right? We go right in and we go right to where we're comfortable. And our work is not to do a disservice or to make comfort bad, but it is to invite us to expand our comfort zone, right? And so I want you to practice moving into spaces, going to where is unfamiliar to you. Building relationships across identities and departments and functional areas with the folks who you wouldn't necessarily. That's not to say don't connect with the people you know. I haven't seen you since the last meeting 6 months ago. Yes, I want to say hi to you. but I don't know this person at all. So making sure that we're building those things. And it must be done intentionally. How many folks know we tell students this all the time? Right? You need to build it, move beyond your comfort zone. We tell them all the time, and they don't see us modeling it. Right? So we have to model it, right? And so that's what I'm inviting us to do in our time together. What I want you to do with your high, this is your Building an Inclusive Community, BIC, BIC. This is your Building Inclusive Community high five buddy. High five him again. Right? Everywhere you see this person, anytime on campus, you will give them a high five. And you will be drawn back in to the energy of this moment that says, we can do this. We can do this. So this is about the reminder of the energy and the possibility that's in the space. Here's where I want you to go for the next 2 minutes with your high five buddy. The second box, the middle box right there, says, what have you seen, heard, or experienced that necessitates this session? So as you consider your day-to-day experience, so as students, as faculty, as staff, what do you see that says we could use an upgrade? That's where I want you to go. Now, a fine answer to that is, I like people, people like me. I treat everybody fairly. My teacher told us we had to be here. If that's your truth, speak that. Right? Whatever your truth is, in the next 2 minutes with your partner, just share that. We'll come back together. Go. 4, 3, 2, 1. Excellent. High five your partner. High fives. High fives in the room. Thank you. Excellent. Excellent. Take a deep breath. Let it out. One more. Let it out. And a third. Let it out. Very good. So the next tool I want to offer you is the tool of breathing. Right? I want you to really embrace breathing as an important tool for moving the work to the next round. How many of us know that breathing has saved the day? Anybody had a moment where, had I not taken a deep breath, it might not have gone so well? Right? You got me? When you take a deep breath, what does it give you an opportunity to do? Think. Pause. Process. Right? Gives me an opportunity to do all of that and to get clear about my intentions in my next statement. So, what's your name? So, Tyson. So, Tyson and I are having an engagement. We've had a bump. Right? And so, when I take a deep breath, I get clear whether the intention in my next statement is to share with Tyson the impact of what happened, how I trust that we are together as colleagues doing this work, and this was problematic, or is my intention to take him out? Now, how many of us know we can show up with takeout intentions? Takeout intentions is about minimizing, dehumanizing, demonstrating how much more I know than you, and not respecting that we're all on a journey. And so, I want you to see the tool of breathing as one that allows you to get clear about your intentions. Now, I want you to be mindful that I'm not telling you what your intention should be, but I do want you to get clear about what your intention is, and then own the responsibility for the impact of how you show up. Is that landing? Right? So if I show up and take out intention, even if I am justified because of what God said, I still have to pay attention to the impact. Is that land? Makes sense. All right. So with that name, where I want us to go and why I invited us into this space, I tell folks all the time that sometimes folks feel like, well, we did this icebreaker. This is not an icebreaker. If I wanted to do an icebreaker, I would have asked you to talk about your favorite colors. What this is. How many of you musicians? Where are my musicians in the room? Some musicians. How about theater people? Any theater people? Some theater folks, okay. How about athletes? Any athletes? How about folks who work out regularly, try to get into the gym once or twice a year? How many folks? We got some of that, right? So, how many of us know that in all three of those areas, practice is required? And if you don't practice, you will show up ineffective in the game or at the performance or on the field. Is that making sense? My experience is that many of us in higher education are showing up to diversity and inclusion and equity issues not having been to practice. And so we show up in the moment and we do not have the capacity to engage the conversation. So what you have been in is practice. Warm up and practice so that you can be more effective in the game for the next round. Does that make sense to you? All right. Now, how many of us know people don't like to go to practice? People just want to be superstars. They just want to show up at the performance. And when you don't do that, when you don't go to practice, you do harm to yourself and to others. All right? So I want you to pay attention to how much am I in practice? Do I just go to practice when there is a workshop? Do I just show up when there is an incident? I work with a personal trainer. He reminds me all the time, Jamie, if you only do your sit-ups when you see me, that will impact your results. Does that make sense? If you only practice this conversation in the moment of crisis or when there is a coach in the room, that will impact the level of capacity that you build to be in it. Is that making sense to you? So I want you to think about as we leave here, how are we practicing this outside of crisis moments? Right? With that, all of the questions up here are about the work that we need to do for the next round. So we need to get clear in this first box, what's up, what's got our head space, our cognitive knowing space, but what's also got our emotional knowing space, right? So not only what do I think, also what do I feel? What we traffic in higher education is knowledge. We will learn the right words, we will have read the right articles, we know how to say what privilege is, but we don't necessarily know how it manifests in us. And we don't know how it manifested in the meeting, in the policy, in the practice, in the ways that we've been operating. We don't necessarily know how exclusion or microaggressions might be showing up in our everyday engagement. Right? Is that making sense to you? All right. So I want you to pay attention to the realities of I've got some cognitive knowing, but what's important is my emotional knowing as well. So I ask you to talk about feelings for being engaged in this conversation in the I wouldn't wear with that skirt level. Right? So let me just hear a couple of folks in the room name feeling. You don't have to explain it, but let me just hear some feelings in the room. And if someone names what it feels like to you, I want you to join them with a snack. All right? So if someone names your feeling, join them. Don't leave them alone. So let me just hear a couple of voices. Feelings. As you think about being in this room with this group of people, having the I wouldn't wear with that skirt conversation, I feel excited. I heard excited. What else?
Fearful.
Fearful. I heard fearful. Who's fearful? I heard anxiety. Anybody else? Hope. Okay. All right. Change. So the possibility of change leaves you feeling what? Happy. Okay. All right. So part of what is going to be needed for the next round is we're going to need to be as emotionally intelligent as we are cognitively intelligent. So I want you to continue to pay attention to what's going on for you, not just at the head level, but at the heart level. What's going on? Because I can be very cognitively aware and know a lot about gender identity and gender expression, and when someone is standing in front of me who is non-binary, I can be very uncomfortable because I don't know what pronoun to use. Are you getting me? So just because I know stuff doesn't mean I feel comfortable engaging stuff, right? I can know all there is to know about folks from different religious backgrounds and experiences, but not know how to engage people during Ramadan. Right? Does that make sense? So my feeling is anxiousness, nervousness. Should I ask that? Can I say that? So pay attention to both of those. The other things that are up there, what's going on in the current climate, what has been your experience with these conversations in your department? So we're here. Maybe some of your full departments are here, but some of them are not. What would it be like to have this conversation in your department? How would we be showing up? Who are the people? Who would be saying what? What's it like in your department? Because I want us all to get clear about our function. What have you seen? I'm going to come back to that in a moment. What's some insights? What's some learning? So I want us to be able to be in the room where we can share with one another, here's how my practice is different because I've learned this. Right? I don't do this in the same way because I'm creating greater inclusion with intention. How is this work impacting the discipline of my work? So whether I'm a police officer, or whether I'm in technology, or whether I'm in communications, or whether I'm in student life or student affairs, or whether I'm as a faculty member, what am I learning through my discipline, through the area, my professional functional area that is showing up through the lens of diversity and inclusion? And so how am I therefore able to talk about it with colleagues and so on around that? And there's a question here around conversations about race here at Sonoma. And I want you just to pay attention to how race enters the room. And we'll come back to that before I wrap up. But I asked specifically about race, and I'm going to talk about why as we move forward. Does that make sense? The last question then is hopes for our time together. And I really invite you to pay attention to, when I come to stuff like this, what do I need to get better? What do I feel like I need to do in the next round? What do I need to do to go to the next level? That's what I want you to pay attention to so that you get intentional about getting those kinds of things, right? Maybe I need to look at the next conference I go to and look at the workshops that are being offered and go to that. Maybe I need to look at the things that are coming out of the hub and go there and get myself some increased learning. Maybe I need to look at what some of the faculty are doing here on campus and go to those spaces and sessions. Maybe I need to have a real conversation with the person in my office so that we can go to a different space. Does that make sense? So what do I need to build my own capacity for greater inclusion? So I want you to take this worksheet and work it. The work is right here in these boxes, and you can build your capacity if you begin to work it. Does that make sense to you? All right. Now, I need 2 people in the room to tell me what you see as you consider your day-to-day that makes this space necessary. 2 people. I would prefer a student and a staff person. Where's my student? I got a student here? And 3 people. A student, faculty, and a staff person. Okay, that's right, exactly. And so, and in my head, I was doing faculty, staff, but I didn't say that. But let's do faculty, staff, and student. Okay, so where's the student? Where's the student? I need a student. Okay, I see that student right there. I need a student who's willing to say what they see that makes this necessary. There's one right there. There's my student. Where's my faculty? I need a faculty member. A faculty member. A faculty member. right. And there's another faculty. And staff. Where's the staff person? Okay, first staff person came up first. Let me get the student. What do you see? Listen, folks, and see what you hear. Say your name, please, and what your year is. Go ahead.
I'm Melissa. I'm a 2nd year.
Great.
What I see every day is I see cisgendered Caucasian individuals, and I think this is necessary. We were actually talking about this in our group. I think it's necessary because as a student, being able to learn compassion and empathy is huge. And I feel like being on this campus, I've been able to learn it, but with a more diverse community. And building a sense of community would allow all students, not just in certain like CALS classes, AMCS, but all students around the campus.
Okay. Thank you. Give me your name again. Melissa. Come on, appreciate Melissa. Thank you. right here.
Hi everybody, I'm Carson, most of you know me. What I experience every day when I advise students is sometimes I ask them why they don't go to place X, Y, and Z and take care of business. Why do you always got to come seek me out? And the response that I get is, because you make me feel safe.
And so folks are looking for a place to feel safe.
Somebody that will sit there, they don't know how to articulate it. They have a need, but sometimes they feel safe because I help them pull out that need and get their needs met.
Okay.
So they go, I feel safe talking to you.
Okay, great, thank you. How many of us want people to feel safe when they come to talk to us? Yeah. All right, that's something that we all, so then the other thing that we get to do is check out, am I a safe person for people to come and talk with? Right? What do folks feel when they come to me, and what's needed for that, exactly? I'm gonna go here and then here. Wanna go? Thank you.
So,
Share your name, please.
sorry, Elisa Velasquez, I'm the chair of the psychology department. And what brought me here is what I don't see and I don't hear here at Sonoma State, and I'm very hopeful for inclusion. So the fact that we put a lot of emphasis on diversity doesn't mean that we are necessarily including people. So that's what we need right now in order to take it to the next stage. Personally, as a faculty member, as an expert on diversity, I feel excluded. And so I guess that's a challenge, how to build from the internal resources that we have. We have experts in all the fields that we are concerned about, but we're not collaborating. We are not developing a plan where everybody feels included. We have strategies, don't get me wrong, right? We are trying, but I guess that's a challenge.
Thank you, thanks so much. How many folks relate? Ladies, yes, thank you.
Hi, I'm Johanna from Early Childhood Studies. I think what has been moving us is to be able to talk about white privilege with our students. I'm a white privileged person. I'm an immigrant, but I still have to recognize that I'm very privileged. And it's very difficult for us to have that conversation with our students. And I would like to learn how to do that.
Sure, thank you, thank you. Who relates, all right? So the power, folks are raising here. So whose voice gets heard? Are we taking advantage? Are we collaborating with the internal campus resources and experts that are there? How do we show up in that? Are we paying attention and knowing the challenge of moving to the next level is inviting us into a conversation of privilege, right? The work of the 80s, the technology from the 80s and the 90s did not have us engaging privilege. We were engaging We Are the World. We were colorblind. We were not seeing race. Does that make sense? Right? And folks, I want you to hear that I'm not making any of that bad or wrong. It was useful in the time, just like dial-up was. It was cutting edge. It was new. It was addressing an issue at the time. We are in a different place today, and we need upgraded technologies. Does that make sense to you? Part of the reason I want everybody answering that box is because when you leave here, I want you to be able to talk about why you came, right? And so often in the work, folks don't know why they are participating in these spaces. I guess it's supposed to be the right thing to do, but I want you really clear about why this matters. When your colleagues ask you, so what was your morning? What'd you do? And you say that you went to this, and they say, oh, why'd you do that? You need an answer. And you need an answer that has something to do with what you're doing here at Sonoma. So what do you see in your work every day that makes it necessary for us to be here, okay? What I want to offer as we move into this conversation is this thing. Why are we here? I want to talk about the business case for higher education. The primary role of higher education is to prepare the next generation of leaders. When I'm in different spaces, what I do is I offer the business case for the work. One of the challenges is folks often see this conversation as a leftist liberal agenda. And while some of this shares the values of those on the left, our job is to prepare the next generation of leaders. That is our product. Does that make sense to you? If we are graduating students who don't know they've been raced, we are failing them. If we're graduating students who don't recognize how their class background and other social identities are impacting the lens through which they operate in the world, we have failed them. Does that make sense to you? So the next generation of leaders will need the skills, the capacity, and the ability to engage with, about, and across difference. That's our job. Is that clear? So when folks ask you why we're doing this, say, I'm doing my job. And so it is important that we as students understand that, and that we as faculty and staff understand. I can't send next generation of students into a courtroom, into a schoolhouse, into a hospital, who don't know how to engage across race, who don't know how to engage and don't know the difference between gender identity and sexual orientation. If I do that, I have failed them. Is that making sense to you? Right? So we are charged with preparing them to engage effectively. Whether they choose to do that or not, that's not our part. Our part is to help them to understand the importance of why it's necessary if you're going to be a sociologist or a school teacher or a musician or a preacher or a pastor or a rabbi or a parent. You might need to know how to talk to your child when they come home and say, my friend Johnny said he's not a boy. He says he's a girl. Can boys be girls? Do I have the capacity to have that conversation with my child, and then with my partner, and then with my parents? Am I making sense to you? Are you getting it? Right? How do we talk about race? How do we talk about class? How do we talk about religion and faith? That's our work for the next round. So with that named, what I want to offer you are some critical skills and tools for being able to create the learning environment. So we want to create spaces that are open and honest, where all perspectives are valid and welcome, that we can speak from our personal experiences using I statements, but allowing space for folks to speak in the collective, the we, right? I want us to be able to listen respectfully, that's seeking to understand, to be open to new perspectives, to take risk, and prepare to engage conflict and discomfort. Say that one with me. Take risk, prepare to engage conflict and discomfort. Tell your partner. Yeah. Folks, part of the upgrade, part of the next round of skills will require that we're able to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Right? And one of the dilemmas is that we want to keep it nice. I shared with the folk yesterday, California nice. Right? So when somebody asked me what California nice was, California nice is, well, we are diverse. And so I've got diverse friends. I grew up with diversity, and diversity is all around us. And so, you know, we get it. So we don't need to talk about it. Am I making sense? Right? So I really want you to pay attention to what happens in places like California is that we confuse proximity with capacity. I went to school with one. My best friend is one. I took a class. How many folks know you can have a best friend who across race and never talk about race? Okay? Now some folks will say, you ain't got a real friend then. But I really want you to pay attention to this notion that just because we are together doesn't mean we're engaging across the difference. And I want you to think about it in your own lives, how that shows up. Right? Is that making sense? So it means being prepared to engage conflict and discomfort. Being willing to move up and to move back. Is my voice, my perspective, always in? If it is, maybe I need to move back so we create spaces for others. If I'm never in, maybe I need to move up, right? It's practice in that discussion. Recognize and explore your triggers. How many folks in the room has ever been triggered? Anybody knows anything about triggers? All right? And so, triggers generally create a fight or a flight response. In neither one of those spaces are you effective engaging. If I'm taking you out or if I'm gone out, I'm not engaging. Right? So, what's important for the upgrade is to pay attention to your triggers. When do I get triggered? What gets named? What gets said? What happens yet again? What got left out again this time that has me go to fight mode or takeout mode? Fight mode or freeze mode, right? Or flight mode or freeze. Fight, flight, or freeze. What's the stuff so that I can do the work that I need to do to heal so that that stimulus doesn't keep taking me there? Because the trigger is actually in you. The thing is just out there. It is the meaning that you make of it that creates the reaction that you have to it. Does that make sense to you? Are you getting that? So, what's the stuff that I get triggered around? And if we had a lot of time, we could just do the whole rest of the session on triggers, right? But triggers is a very important thing because I've experienced folks in the room who have shut down because of triggers, right? So pay attention to that. To trust intent, name, explore, and engage impact, right? So the importance of recognizing that for the most part, we get up every day. Most people get up every day trying to do their very best. Most folks don't get up trying to do harm, right? Most folks don't come to campus saying, I'm looking to piss off the black people today. So let me figure out what I can say racist. Who I can skip over, who I can leave out, let me see how. Most folks don't get up with that conscious intention. Am I making sense? Now, folks, you heard me say most. I'm not trying to say that that doesn't exist in some spaces. But in the work that we're doing, I would argue that most of us don't do that. But how many folks know well-intentioned people do harm every day? Every day, right? So, in my acknowledgement of the assassination of Harvey Milk, I neglected to acknowledge the assassination of the mayor. Right? That had an impact in the room. Someone shared that with me. Now, I know that I didn't get up with that intention, but it did have that impact. Is that making sense? So what I want you to pay attention to is, are you able to hear the impact that you had without needing to explain your intention? We've had a moment, again, Tyson and I keep having moments. We've had a moment, and I have done something that has created harm. And Tyson begins to share with me that I have done something that has created harm. And I spend my time explaining my intention without demonstrating that I have heard or learned from the impact before I get, I would never, my best friend is, and I go into credential mode. I've got to list all the ways that could not have been racist. And so I'm in that space, and what I am doing is re-traumatizing. Because I'm showing up in a way that demonstrates I'm not able to hold, that I could have done something, even unintentionally, that created harm. Now, don't get me wrong, your intention does matter, right? It does matter, so pay attention to that. But in the moment, pay attention to not focusing on your intention, but learning from the impact. Does that land? Does that make sense? Right? The last part of this piece here is trust, intent, name, and one of the things that happens is we sometimes trust intent out of trying to keep it nice. We stop at trust intent. So Tyson might have had that bump and said, well, that was Jamie. He probably didn't mean it. you know, he's one of the good ones. He's a good guy. You know, he does diversity work. So there's no possible way that he meant that. So he doesn't tell me the impact. What he in fact has done then is set me up. Because chances are I didn't even know I did that. And I didn't know what I did had that impact. So to not name the impact is dishonoring and disrespectful. In some spaces I say it's a very unloving thing to do. Because chances are I will do it again to someone else. Does that make sense to you? So sometimes it's like we intend to be nice and trust impact, but when we don't share really, what we do is then create more harm. Right? That makes sense to you? So trusting intent, naming, and displaying impact. The next thing, trust that the dialogue will take us to deeper levels of understanding and acceptance. You must believe that as we come together to do this work. My friend, Dr. Lucretia Flash at the University of, she did her doctoral work at the University of Vermont and now is the Chief Diversity Officer at Berklee College of Music. But her work was on creating institutional and organizational change through a diversity lens in higher education. The number one thing that impacts the success of being able to do that is this: bringing together faculty, staff, and students for shared learning and common ground. Number one thing. So this is a best practice. Right? So I want you to, high impact practice. The challenge is, if it stops here, it doesn't matter. But this work in this way. So what I'm saying is, we must trust that these moments, these opportunities to listen, hear, learn, engage with one another will take us to deeper levels of understanding and acceptance. If you don't, it won't work. So if you show up, like if you came to this meeting, came to this session saying, I know I need to be there because people will notice that I'm not. If you showed up in here and you said to your administrative assistant or secretary or someone, text me in 20 minutes with an emergency so I can get out of there, then you're performing. So you show up here in performance, not in real engagement. So I want you to pay attention to, do I perform a valuing of diversity and inclusion, or do I show up actually in spaces to do the work? Right? Does that make sense to you? Are you getting that? So trust that the dialogue will take us deep levels of understanding. And the last thing is to have some fun. Where my fun people at? Any fun people in the room? Fun people, raise your hand. Hi, fun people. I need some high. Fun people. High five the fun people around you. Fun people. So folks, here's what I want you to get really deeply. If you don't take anything else from my comments today, fun people. If the only time we come to the conversation of diversity, equity, and inclusion is when it's urgent, it's when we're in crisis or something has happened, the problem of diversity, nobody wants to be in that. We're not moving toward that. And so I'm not saying just do food, festivals, holidays, and heroes. That's not what I'm saying. I do want you to do some of that. But I do want us also to be able to be in the joy of engaging across difference. Jamie, my pronouns are he, him, and his. What I'm learning as a cisgender person are these things and how I navigate the planet and things that I get to think about. Here's how I messed up last week. Here's what I just watched this show. I just learned the fun, the joy of our learning based upon our identities and what we get to do and what we don't get to do. Does that make sense to you folks? And so, if we can be together in the joy, we will have the capacity to hang in there in the struggle. If we only come together in the struggle, we will have not built the capacity to be in there with each other. Am I making sense? A colleague of mine says, where there's no relationship, there's no grace. And so if I don't have relationship with you, Jonathan Poulard, yeah, JP, right? If I don't have relationship with you, I'm not likely to give you the benefit of the doubt, right? Where there's no relationship, there's no grace. So what I want you to do, before I move to the last piece, is I want you to turn to your partner and share with your partner What up there you know you do well? Every day as I come to school, as I come to work, I know that I do open and honest communication well. I know that I do listening respectfully. People always tell me how much they appreciate feeling heard around me, all right? Feeling safe with me. I know I do that well. So you've got 1 minute. Share what you do well. Don't focus on anything you need to work on, right? Don't focus on any of that. Just what you do well. 1 minute. Go. Share with your partner. 3, 2, 1. High fives. High fives in the room. All right. All right. So here's what I want to say, folks. I've spent the last 30 years of my professional career doing this work. And I go into rooms all over the country. We create spaces where people can agree to operate in this way. Folks agree to do that in the room. Leave the room and leave this agreement in the room. And then wonder why nothing changes. What we know, those of us who have been in and are doing this work, is you must practice this in order for change. If you leave the room and stop being open and honest, if you leave the room and stop allowing all voices to be valid and heard, if you leave the room and stop trusting intent but naming and exploring impact, you will maintain status quo. You get me? So, as we talk about real tools, this is what you must take with you to practice. In addition to your high five buddy, in addition to the energy, in addition to the breathing, you must take this with you and you must operate out of it. So, how many of you can identify something you know you do well? Who could do that, right? Here's your charge for the remainder of the year into 2019, the academic year, not just the remainder. For the remainder of the full academic year, simply do that. Just do what you do well and watch what happens. Just do what you do well and watch what happens. We cannot be the same if we practice doing these things, particularly through the lens of diversity and inclusion, right? Who's been in a space where you have clearly, something has happened, somebody said something, and everybody went like this? Who's been there? If you're open and honest, if you take risks, your role at that moment is to raise your hand. Something just happened. And it happened after you said that. And I know we're at the end of the meeting and we don't have a lot of time. But we cannot pretend like that didn't happen. And in order for us to move forward, I need us to commit to coming back to that conversation. Will that shift the dynamic? It absolutely shifts the dynamic. What you have to do then is what? Prepare to engage conflict and discomfort. So moving into this work, folks, for the next round means we've got to get ready to be in spaces where it's not going to be easy all the time. If you're practicing this, if you're listening respectfully and you hear and you see that somebody is not being heard and you interrupt that process and say, I'm not sure that you're hearing her, you're going to create space for conflict and discomfort. Does that make sense to you? So we must practice those things. Is that landing? High five your partner. When you see them, anywhere, you're going to say, work your strength. Make sure you're working your strength. You're going to remind them. If they're walking down the hall and you can't get to them, air high five. Remind them that we must be in active practice in order to shift the dynamics. Does that make sense? So the last thing I want to say, folks, and I know we're out of time, but I want to invite us into this piece, and I really so much appreciate Dr. Elisa saying, the importance of us really being able to navigate the notion of inclusion. So when you hear the words diversity and inclusion, what's the difference? What is the difference in diversity and inclusion? Yes, please, right here. Thank you. What's your name? Shakima.
To me, diversity is a lot of different people in the room, but inclusion is when everyone is included into the community.
So, Nikima? Jakima, name. Diversity is when a lot of different people are in the room. Inclusion is when everyone is included in the room. That work, people? What else? Anybody else? One more voice. What's it mean? So lots of times when I'm on campuses and we're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion word, folks don't know what we're talking about. What does that mean for you? So when you hear that, what does it mean, right? What I want to offer is that lots of folks are trying to do inclusion without owning exclusion. We would have no need to do inclusion work if there wasn't some people who'd already been overly included and some folks who've been excluded. Is that landing? So, how many of you believe in the current time that there's still groups of people who get treated here and groups of people who get treated here? That this is alive and well today? Does this exist around race? Yes. Class? Yes. Gender? Yes. Gender identity? Yes. Sexual orientation? Yes. Religion? Yes. Faith practices, beliefs, right? Yes. Age? Yes. Okay, you get what I'm saying? So we all agree that this dynamic exists. The next thing, though, is in order for the rest of this work to matter, you must have a problem with that. This is not a valueless proposition. If you say this is true, you got to have a problem with it. And then you get to decide, what's my part in keeping this alive and well? And what do I get to do to help shift it? Now, the shift is not from here to here. But I talk about the shift as from here to here to here. Right? Now, I sometimes refer to that as with liberty and justice for all. Now, I read that somewhere. That's in some document. I don't know. But I'm talking about one of our stated core values. And if we're to live into that, if we are to do our work for the next round, as every generation has its opportunity to do, right? The generations, the shoulders that we all stand on, had the opportunities to move us along, to help to create a space where the room could be more diverse. And our work is now to help us get to a space where we can be more inclusive. But we must own this dynamic. Is that making sense to you? I must look at when I'm a member of this group and when I'm a member of this group. And what am I doing as we move the work forward? Lastly, when most folks think about diversity and inclusion, what's the first thing they think we're going to talk about? Race. And if we're talking about race, who are we talking about? Black. Yeah, black and white people. So if you're not black and white, good luck. Maybe we'll find some time for a discussion, maybe we won't. Even out here in California, it's still a very real thing. Right? So why, how many of you agree that diversity is about more than race? Race is about more than black and white. We all know that. Why does our minds go there? I want to offer, our minds go there because of our context. And so I want to leave you with understanding context before content. The context that we operate in is the context of the U.S. And the U.S. has a particular race history. Would you agree? Yes. And that race history has erased Native American, First Nations, and Indigenous people. That race history has created a narrative that pits black and brown folks against one another. That race history has created a narrative that has had Apita and Desi folks positioned as the model minority so that they don't get seen in the race conversation. That race, the narrative, has created a monoracial discussion so that folks who I can't figure out what you quite are get asked, what are you? that race narrative has us not engage whiteness as a thing, or the recognition that anti-blackness exists across all of it, including in the black community. And so, folks, if we are going to do this work, what we must do is race. You can't do social justice, diversity, and inclusion for the next round if you won't do race. Now, before I sit down, repeat after me. Jamie did not say. Race was more important than other identities. One more time, Jamie did not say. Race was more important than other identities. Don't lie on me. Right? Don't say that I said that, because I didn't. Good. Thank you. Repeating that too. Don't lie. Because what happens is when I show up in a room, in this package, you see the package, right? What people hear is that I said race was more important. That's not what I said. I said, given our context, we must be willing to do race. We must be willing to acknowledge how our siblings who were born in other shores and who have immigrated or who have come to the U.S., how they get raced when they get here. And how race shows up for them even though they don't have the same race narrative in their bodies. Right? So we must deal with the complicated history of race in the context of the U.S. In doing that, I challenge you as you leave the room. Jamie said we've got to do race. All right. People have said to me, I agree with you. I'm going to do race. And so, my challenge to you is, what would you be doing tomorrow if you were doing race? What does that practice look like? So with your high five buddies, with your colleagues around, I invite you to the question, are you doing race? And what does that mean you're doing? I don't want to leave you without understanding that everything you must do around race, you must do around gender. You must do around class. You must do around ability. You must do around sexual orientation and faith traditions and the intersections of all of those identities. When I was an undergraduate at Slippery Rock State College, I was committed to ending racism. I was going to end it before I left. Well, still working on that. I left Slippery Rock and then I went to Indiana and I discovered sexism. Who knew? So I was going to end sexism, and I'm still working on that one as well. I say that to say, folks, that as you leave this place, I didn't share this for you to be overwhelmed. I shared it for you to get clear about there's work to do and what's our part in it, and to realize that ours may not be to fix it. Ours is simply to leave it better than you found it. I believe you can. I hope you will. Thanks so much. We were in school together at Slippery Rock.
Okay, before you leave, Terrence, hold on one second. Before you leave, we'll let these guys talk. But I want to make sure that we can end the program appropriately and not have y'all just walking out. We got to finish this thing up. How many of us are different as a result of Dr. Washington being here today? He gave us some challenges. And the fact that I will tell you, I have high five buddies all over the country. Literally, over the number of years that I've watched my friend, I will be in the airport, I'm walking along, and there's a guy running down the high five. It happens in the supermarket, in different states.
I even had one in Shanghai, China, when I was at Fudan University, and I had a high five with it.
All right.
So it works. And the reminder that we must do that with each other on this campus. The idea of saying that you're at Sonoma State, I've only been here since April, but I knew when I walked on this campus, there was a different feel. I didn't always feel at home. And I came in as a vice president. I live in Petaluma. I know what my neighbors look like and I know what I look like. It's obvious when I walk into Starbucks, it's like, oh, there's one. So I know what it feels like to be different in my community. But what we have done today is to make sure something's very positive, and that is to talk about those things which are uncomfortable. Because if we just do the assumption of doing it and getting by just to get by, or getting along, just so I don't raise any stuff, because, oh, Lord have mercy. Because I know I'm living in the 80s, and I just want us to all be kumbaya. And as soon as we talk about race, then we're going to have to start talking about those networks that we go home and watch. So today, what I say to all of you, so we send off Dr. Washington the right way, I'd like for all of us to extend our own high five to our new partner, to Dr. Washington. Thank you so much for being a part of it. Thank you all for being here. And I hope that each and every day we will continue to work with our students, work with our faculty, work with our staff, and making Sonoma the most promising place to work for in the country. Thank you.
Thank you.